Okay, today we're going to make a pin for the rear brakes to hold them in place, and also we'll probably be making a new axle. I don't like the axle that came from the factory. I'm going to make a new one. So first I think we'll just face this off and get the end of the shaft nice and flush. It's a 1-inch shaft, and I'm just going to chew it down to what we need for sizes. This thing actually is going to be a step shaft. It'll be 3 different sizes. It's when it goes through the frame, there's different sizes of a hole, so that it'll be in a nice spot, and it'll be tight. It won't move, and it won't let the brake move. First, we'll just face it off here and see how we do. To face this stuff off, and then you've got a nice flat end to work with. It looks like a much more professional job when you're done. It's just a good thing to do. You don't have to cut off lots, just enough so that it's cutting all the way around the shaft. If everything's set up the way it should be when that cutter's done in the center, you should just barely see a little dot where it ends up. And there we have it. It turned out actually quite well. It's right into the center. Next step, we're going to make a center hole, so that if it ever has to be worked again, of course I would probably make a new one anyway, but if it ever has to be worked on or anything, there will be a nice center hole to start with. Okay, so we got our shaft set up, we got our center drill in. We'll just move it into place here. Turn the machine on and start drilling. You've got to start very slow with this so it has a chance to get going. Just let it chew away a little bit, and pretty soon it'll start to peel a bit out. There, it's starting now. This is not a hard thing to do either. It's just a nice thing to start with, so that if you ever have to work with it, you've got something to start with. If you don't have an end in it, it's pretty hard to put one when the shaft's already screwed. So, and that should just about do it there, I think. There we go. A nice center to put my live center in if we ever have to work on it. Okay, we got our cutter in place here, and we're going to take a cut off this shaft. Well, we'll probably take 40 or 50 thou off it. It's fairly aggressive, but we'll smooth it out and everything later to take it to proper size. Just an old piece of shaft that I had laying around. I only need 3 inches here, so there's no sense in using a new piece. Doesn't make any difference. You got to cut the outside off anyway. Step shaft, of course, you always have to start with the biggest size of however many steps you have. If you don't, you're going to end up in trouble. It's really hard to start with a small and end up with the big at the other end. It's easier to do the largest size and then step down as you go. of here, and that should be ample. Any extra when we're done, we'll just cut it off with a cut-off tool. I don't like them, but that's what we'll use. There we go. Okay, I finished cutting the large step and the two small steps. It's pretty much to size. I think we'll just take it out now and we'll put a groove in the large step for a set screw. There's our cutoff tool or parting tool. We'll just make a groove, 1/8 of an inch deep, something like that, just so that there's a nice spot there for the set screw to hold it in place. This doesn't take much. It's got to be very careful with cutoff tools. They have to be set up perfect, or the piece will just grab them and pull them in, and it just destroys them. So I've got a few pieces laying out in the trees here that when I first started ruined them from doing this, and a few cutters also. There, that should be the size. Really doesn't matter how deep it is. I like about 1/8 of an inch. It just gives the set screw something really good to grab at. Okay, I think you can see the steps inside the bike frame here. There's one right into here, and then the next one actually is in this piece behind it. That's the smallest piece, biggest piece, and then the center size is in the middle. We'll see if we can get... I should have tried this before I turned the camera on. We'll see if it's going to go in. Oh yeah, there we go. And we'll just tighten our set screw up that we have on this collar. I put this collar on here. It's just tacked into place for now. We'll set our set screw up. Just nice and snug. There's no sense in over tightening that. Okay, here's the stock axle assembly, and I really don't like it. It pretty much depends on a squeeze bolt right here, this bolt here, to just squeeze down on the shaft and hold it in place. And I don't know why it was ever designed like that. It's a good quick thing, but it's not a very safe thing. So what I've done, I've drilled a hole down through here for a 1/4 inch bolt, and that'll end up going through our axle too and holding everything in place, and that way there's no fear of anything going south on us when we're halfway down the track. Okay, here we have our axle shaft, the part here that squeezes into the frame that I showed you. There's our hole. I think you can see it in there, right in here. That's where our 1/4 inch pin's going to go through and keep it from sliding out on us. This is all cut to size. This is just a single step here. So I guess actually this is a 1-step shaft. This is just the 1 inch standard size. Luckily, I don't know why that isn't metric, but I guess because of the squeeze you can kind of go from size to size a little bit. The threads, I've cut my own threads on it. I just don't have dies and whatnot that big. So I just put it in the lathe and cut them. It takes a little time and it takes a little practice, but it's surprising how nice of a thread you actually can make with a lathe. Okay, again I should have tried this before I put it in. I did put a mark right here. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah, there you go. It's just a mark so that I know which is the hole is top or bottom. It's not drilled perfectly centered. I didn't intend to. So all you got to do is look at the mark and stick it in. There you go. I've machined a spacer here that keeps the wheel in place, and this is kind of a thing that I've done on my own. It slides right through where the holder is. There. We'll get our dot lined up, pop it in, and there's our 1/4 inch pin. Just turn it a little bit here to line it up. Put the nut on the bottom. Even if this nut falls off, it still can't come out because the top of this bolt has got a bit of a ridge on it, and it'll keep it in there even if there's no nut on it. The nut's just a kind of a safety backup. I used to do a lot of hang gliding, and when you're flying in the air, you always have some kind of a backup, and I guess that's something that I've always done ever since. There we go. Okay, so that's all into place. We'll go around the other side and get the nut on. Okay, we're just going to make a spacer here for the nut on the back axle. This piece is actually off of an old side grinder. It's the piece that holds the disc in place. It's nice and heavy and thick, and it's really good steel. It'll never mark up or stretch or shrink or squash or anything. We'll just grind it down. I want to get this lip off the back side of it here, just so that it fits on nice and flush. Just kind of put it on the side of the stone and work it with a rotating action. A little bit of water once in a while. Keep it nice and clean. When we're done with this, it'll fit on there really well. Surprising how flat and smooth you can make things with a grinder if you turn on the wheel a little bit as you go. Of course, some of these are special stones that I have too for this type of work. They work really well. Water. And I think we've got it pretty good here. It's took the little lip off of the inside edge there, and that should fit on there and smooth out really well. Okay, I don't know if you could hear me when I was grinding there or not, but we got the surface nice and flush here. Cut this edge down. And there's a nice rough surface on the outside edge to keep anything from turning too. I kind of like that. It's going to work a lot better than anything you could really buy. So we'll just slip it on here. Fits on nice and flush up against. Shaft a couple inches longer than was necessary, just to make sure that we had enough, and then we'll part it off right in the end. I'll be taking the bike right back apart again anyway, and doing this type of thing to it. Threads fit quite nice actually. It's a little tight right out on the end, but doesn't matter, that isn't going to be there anyway. There, that should do that. There we have one new axle.